Welcome to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn of thejessicaflynn.com, and our show is on a mission to unleash local wisdom for widespread impact. We're committed to inspiring positive change in our small communities and beyond. And joining me today, we'll be talking about creativity, confidence, and what it means to design a world where everyone can show up as their boldest self, is Joseph Tassoni, an award-winning Canadian fashion designer who lives and designs with purpose. From humble beginnings to red carpet runways, Joseph's Canadian brand is a bold celebration of craftsmanship, inclusivity, and innovation. Known for his fearless aesthetic and focus on comfort meets couture, speaking my language, Joseph has dressed stars at TIFF, designed award-winning showpieces, even out of bathroom tissue, and adapted his atelier during the pandemic to produce protective frontline gear. But beyond the glamour, Joseph is also a community builder, mentoring students, advocating for Made in Canada fashion, and using the runway as a platform for mental health, diversity, and meaningful change. His motto, fashion with purpose, style with impact. Joining us from Burlington, Ontario, thank you so much, Joseph, for taking the train and joining us in studio today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a true privilege to be here, and I just think what you are doing, this platform, your voice, it is so important, and I'm just completely humbled and honored to be here, so thank you.
Well, and we pretty much had a whole episode before the cameras started rolling, so we have so much to talk about, and you're just such a joy to converse with, and I'm honored to get to celebrate you. So can you start us from the beginning, young Joseph? How did you find fashion? How did fashion find you?
Well, fashion definitely found me.
Yeah.
So I remember, I grew up in a house. I have 3 sisters, a mom and a grandma. And my family has always been about building and creating things, whether it's from, homes or anything that they could get their hands on. It's always been about creation. And when I was about 4 or I think 3, I remember I just started, my mother told me, she's like, you just started making things. And then I remember at the time there was, do you remember Beta, like the Beta films?
Okay,
so
yeah,
before,
the tapes. Yeah.
So my grandfather, when he was alive, he was a big film buff, and he had all these original Disney films. And I remember there was a scene, and it was like these porcelain characters that would come alive at night, and it was a war, very Nutcracker style.
Okay.
And I remember seeing the gowns, I was like, oh, I want to fix that, or I want to make that. So then one day, and there's this very famous photo that my mom has that's up on the internet, but she came home and I had cut up all of her curtains and then I had made all of my sister's dresses.
Oh
and then in the photo you see the little scissors, and I remember everything was pretty jagged because my grandmother and my mother were both petrified that I would cut off my fingers with sharp scissors. So I had the Crayola, the so and then from there it was just constant, and my sisters always creating and designing for them. It reached a point where right now, if I ever ask them to try something on again, they're like, okay, get back to me.
Yeah.
They're like, I've shown my support, but they're always there. My sisters, my mom and my grandma, my whole family, such supporters in regards to creating and to making and any shows that
What a gift to grow up in that sort of environment. And we've, my background is an educator, and I also have young ones, but creativity is what we all innately have as humans, but that our systems really do train out of us. So the fact that your grandmother and your mother were able to harness that and support you and nurture that, what a celebration.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very lucky.
And you did all this in Canada. You're a Canadian designer, an award-winning Canadian designer, in both design and production. So we talked about this a little bit before we started filming too, how there are other organizations that say one thing, in my experience, it's with green or sustainability, and we have to be really careful with how we use these terms, and you are so authentically Canadian throughout your whole process. Can you talk to us about what that looks and feels like and why that's important for you?
So I worked in corporate apparel for just over 18 years. I started really young. I got you coffee, I did sweeping, whatever needed to be done, because ultimately I knew when I launched my company, I wanted to understand the value and the worth that everyone brings to the table. And when I launched the company in 2017, it was really important to me. I said, okay, I want to do a Made in Canada brand. I want to support local. I want to source my materials locally. I want the brand to be sustainable. And then from there, let's see if the public connect with it.
Yeah.
And since 2017, that has been a core value of the brand. It hasn't changed.
Wow.
And I'm very, very proud. And through when we had the pandemic, and even now, there's the ups and the downs of let's support local, let's support Made in Canada.
Right, where it's a trend and not authentically woven into the fabric, if you will.
Yes,
yeah.
And you do have a core group that take the time to really ask the questions and say, okay, is this made in Canada? Or is it just designed in Canada? Is it curated in Canada? Is it assembled in Canada? Is it a Canadian owned? Is it a Canadian brand? All of these are, and there's many more, all of these are really important distinctions.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I try and explain to people. I'm like, it's how you communicate, but it's also how you understand. Often, sometimes retailers, when let's just say they're carrying a line, they understand a particular distinction, and that's how they present because that's what they understand. At the end of the day, it's our reality and us as end consumers who are purchasing this to really examine and ask those questions, being like, okay, if it's assembled in Canada, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Or if it's Canadian owned, okay, what does that mean? When I say made in Canada, literally, we do the pattern, we do the sewing, we source the materials locally, we make it.
Yeah.
Either,
you can come and see
yeah,
through
you
the
can
window,
come,
right? Yeah.
You can come in and see, and it's a really hard process. It is not easy.
Or inexpensive, I would imagine, right?
But
to make that commitment.
Correct, but at the end of the day, when a person, let's just say, you go inside a retailer, and you're like, okay, you know what? I take the subway every single day. I'm cold. I need something that's going to keep me warm. So let's just say you invest a couple $100s in a piece. That piece, you think visually it's going to keep you warm because it's poofy, as an example. But then you're freezing, and you're freezing at that bus stop, and you're freezing in transport. So when you add up, let's just say from year to year to year, when you add up how much you've invested, it is the equivalent of an investment piece that can last a lifetime.
Yeah.
So the way that I like to offer people, and especially in my line, is different levels or different presentations. It's like if you want to go, let's just say ultra glam, ultra looks, yes, we can do that. But there's also other styles that you can do from a practical standpoint that can serve its purpose, both being wind resistant, snow resistant, give you a certain level of warmth,
Right.
allow that breathability within the garment.
Wow.
It's that education,
It
right?
is.
It's that education to the people. And
There was a documentary that I watched years ago when I was still teaching in the classroom, and I'm gapping on what it's called, so we'll put it in the notes. But it became a documentary that I showed all of my students, and we're around the same age, and we really grew up where fast fashion has been a part of our experience, where you would go out and you can buy a new top for $10 and not care about where it ends up. But the true cost, it's called the true cost. And this documentary really opened up my eyes to the life cycle of our clothing and our intense consumer habits here, and where it all ends up, which is not in a donation bin. 10% of that stays in Canada. It's often in piles in places like Haiti that are polluting their waters, also that we get 52 weeks of new fashion. And in that documentary they spoke, and it was actually an Italian designer who said, we used to have a couple of well-tailored, well-made pieces, say a jacket or a coat, for example, that would last your lifetime. And now every winter you get a new jacket. And what happened, so I think well-designed, well-tailored fabrics that are meant to last is hopefully where some of us are going back to as we look at the state of the planet and the responsibility we all need to take as consumers.
Absolutely. I think people, if you see an opportunity to support our economy, to support workers here, and support, Canada, I am seeing that shift. I am seeing people making that conscious decision. We did grow up in that era of fast fashion, and again, it comes in waves and it goes out, and then you see in the news, you see factories falling on people, workers being locked inside, pays being held for over a year, and then you don't think about it because with the way that the internet is and social, it's immediate satisfaction, it's latest trends, it's about that education and understanding, and it's the next generation, and we always lead by example and with purpose. And that's, purpose isn't something I find that Canadian brands you just kind of fall into. You start your company with a purpose.
Right.
And at Joseph Tassoni, our purpose is made in Canada, but also supporting our community and raising awareness to the community. And any time that I kind of look at everything, the purpose always just comes back naturally. And people see that.
Yeah.
People really, and I think now when I'm seeing more, I think just because so much in regards to social and how it's not really a reality, this taste of people wanting authenticity. They want the realness back.
Right.
And I am sensing that.
Oh, that's so good to hear. That
Yeah,
more people are looking up from their screens and seeing this beautiful atelier in their backyard in Burlington.
Yeah.
Right? Hiring local people and training local people as well. Right?
Absolutely.
So before we go to break, I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like in the shop in terms of your training and the work that you do with students.
So I have been, for me, this is the way that it is. It has to be a two-way street. And I have been mentoring over at TMU, Humber College, Fan Shop, wherever I can help students, whether it's officially or unofficially. Some of the schools will have me come in, be a keynote speaker, speak to the class, or I have the individual students just reach out and say, hey, I saw you online, or I came by, I was visiting, the downtown and saw your boutique. You actually make things. Is there any way
You're a
that—
real person, a real Canadian who's doing the thing that I'm studying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the way that I do it is, I actually will have a full interview process, let's just say, with a student, and just really understand, because fashion, right, it's so many different aspects. It's not just about, some people have this image that is, these glamorous parties and these beautiful, events. No. And it can
Once
be.
a year,
It can be, but there's so many different levels, from the pattern making to the sewing to the fabric selection to communicating with people. And when I have conversations with students, I bring them in, or it's online at the beginning to have a conversation. And often, with the newer generation, because of social skills are being a little bit lost.
Yeah,
and what I try and do is bring out that confidence, because it's there. It's just no one's talking about it. No one's showing.
And especially in art, we need our next generation of artists to show up and feel confident. So we have to break, and we have so much more to talk about. But after the break, we're going to discuss that passion, and how Joseph is taking his passion, your talents, and really turning it into purpose, not only through the fashion and your line, but through community impact as well. So we'll see you soon. This is Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn, and today I'm graced with the presence of Joseph Tassoni, award-winning Canadian fashion designer, and we are talking about fashion with purpose, style with impact. And you are, a leader. You are setting precedent for what Canadian fashion means, but also what it can do. So can you talk to me about your, when we first met, what blew me away was that you're this giant icon, but you're talking about community and local community and your business neighbors and your family. And tell me about your connection to your community.
Well, I think through fashion, we have a platform, but I also think there's that responsibility to highlight community. You have to give back both ways. So the way that I look at it, we have incredible businesses in our downtown or, all over Ontario, all over Canada.
Yeah.
And if you can't share and if you can't help spotlight other communities around you and people and just causes as well, you definitely should. It's part of how I feel internally, like apart from my personal beliefs, but also my brands, is that you should always support the community where you can. And whether that's just joining up for a gathering, or if you can lead your own independent initiative, do it. When you can share kindness and when you can support others, it really does have this massive domino effect. And from what I have done, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do in the community.
As you should be.
and I have major goals to do more. So
I don't doubt it. Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you know this, but I have a youth program and it's called Passion to Purpose. And what's just running through my mind is like the students who are studying fashion design, but when no matter what your gift is, whether it's fashion, whether it's athletics, whether it's speaking or performance or reading or writing, you are a living, breathing example of what is possible when you are supported to embrace your passions and amplify, we're not going to talk about politics, but political messages, community support. So you've supported organizations around mental health and inclusivity. So can you tell me about those connections?
Yeah, so the first time it actually started was when I was in high school. So there was a little girl, she had a disease called osteogenesis imperfecta. And what it was a brittleness of the bone. So if you touched her the wrong way, her bones would break.
Wow.
So in high school, her mom at the time was trying to raise funds to create VHS tapes to send out to remote hospitals across Canada to educate ER staff on how to treat someone with OI if they came in. So then I told her, I said, listen, I'm doing my high school show. I was like, I wasn't gonna charge anybody anything. I said, if you want, let's put a ticket sale price, let's do a silent auction, take the funds, create the videos, which is what she did.
Wow.
So from then, I have worked behind the scenes with over 20 charitable organizations, and it's always been about positive physical change. So whatever the cause is, if I can help support either, let's just say,
by being you and doing what your gifts and what your talents are, right?
You got it. And helping raise a voice to it, highlighting it, spotlighting it, and just the incredible things that we're trying to do, I will always be there.
Wow.
Always be there, so yeah. And I'd always look at bathroom tissue differently.
So was that, tell us a little bit about that story, because it's in your bio.
Yeah, so in 2015-16, I was approached by Kruger Products. So they have that, it's a competition initiative where up-and-coming Canadian designers are asked, and established designers, to create a garment out of bathroom tissue in support of breast cancer awareness. And when they approached me, prior I had worked very closely with many people that were just diagnosed with breast cancer or were going through treatment. So for me, I was like, it was personal. I said, absolutely, I'd love to. And then they send you these gigantic sheets, they're like the size of a small human.
Wow.
And I took it upon myself. So my theme they gave me was winter. I cut out over 3,200 individual little bathroom tissue circles.
You did not.
Yeah, painted them on so it looked like snow that was falling. It won a bunch of stuff.
I hope so.
So I was really proud.
That's very different than the ones I've made at bridal showers.
It's just,
That's incredible.
amount of time that
Yeah.
you have, right?
Yeah.
Amount of time
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you have.
Sure,
Bridal
sure,
shower,
sure.
you know, and
Yeah.
but I'm so proud
Oh,
to
yeah.
be able to take the talents that I have and that my team has and apply whatever the initiative is.
And art really is such a mover of people.
It is.
And I think, I've been thinking about this recently, how I wonder if we're going to look back in this particular time and look at it as a bit of a dark age. And what gets us out of dark age time and time again is an artistic revolution. And I
absolutely.
see no pressure, but I feel like that is part of what you've been tasked with, is to help us see the light and use your art to help shine that light.
Thank you for saying that. It's only possible with people that want to see a bit of that light or are looking for that light.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of things are happening, and through tough situations, it forces you to reinvent and to invent things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just going back to the basics.
I think encouraging to others to, when you're in that mode of maybe feeling the darkness, looking to what you are in control of and what your talents and gifts and how you can share. And you are also very good at bringing people together. And I know Toronto used to have a fashion week, they don't anymore, and you took it upon yourself to bring some of that light and art and culture. So tell us about your annual show.
Exactly. So we started it, I came up with the idea in 2023. And specifically, we did it locally, right by our shop in downtown Burlington. And I wanted to create an elevated presentation that highlighted not only my latest collection, but that highlighted local businesses, from just say local distilleries, vineyards, local restaurants.
Right.
And then as well, community partners, people with like-minded beliefs and core values. Showing my collection, and then meanwhile all supporting a cause that's very dear to me, mental health and inclusivity. What we did was in the first year, and we're continuing with it now going into our third year, is independent of my brand. We purchased inclusive inpatient gown covers from the brand FX Made in Canada, which is part of George Brown College's Fashion Exchange.
Wow.
And what that is, so let's just say, if, I'll give you an example. There is a hospital, okay, that their mental health ward hasn't been updated since 1961.
Oof.
And what year are we?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have huge advancements in regards to medical support, medical health. And let's just say if you're a person and you're trying to understand, okay, I'm suffering, either depression, schizophrenia, borderline personalities, whatever the
We've
cause.
seen the movies that take place in these types of wards in the 60s.
Yeah. So some hospitals, they allow you to keep your clothes, and clothes to me are a form of armor. They're your identity. It's what can also help you heal. Others, you have to put on gowns. And what I really wanted to do was purchase something that people could put over, made of organic bamboo, so it allows for high breathability. So if you're medicated and you have any rashes or any irritableness to
That's so
medications,
thoughtful.
very important, but as well that it's inclusive. So however you identify, size, anything, and you get to keep it. So that was really important to me. Like it was, it's about that physical change, it's those little moments. And when people are trying to heal, I want to support them as best as I can. And that's what we do. And it's part of it, like it's part of everything. So we did in 2023, it was a massive success. Last year, we brought the show to Toronto. The show in Toronto was packed house, continued with our cause.
And you oversold by quite a bit, right?
I'm very, very humbled.
You're very humble when you say packed house.
You know what? It's amazing to see everyone come together.
Yeah.
It was really amazing to see everyone want to support. They want to celebrate fashion. They want to also highlight the businesses. So the way that I do it too is like, so I'll invite, let's just say a restaurant from, I don't know, let's just say Milton, Georgetown, Barrie, wherever I can, and you come, you present. I typically ask that the owner be there so that they can meet and greet with people. So if you're ever going up for a day visit up in that area, you can go check them out.
Right.
For me, so many people, they'll offer these platforms and it's like, okay, and then you have to, commit to this, commit to that, commit to this.
You were just so authentic.
I want to offer the
bringing,
platform.
Yeah, bringing people together and building community. So we only have a few minutes left. Tell us kind of what are some of the highlights that you're very excited about for September's show.
So September's show, and everything will be available up online on my website starting next week. But it's an intersection of fashion and technology. This year, we really are exploring the world of AI. What does that mean? What is the footprint in regards to fashion? And what's happening? I can't give
What's
it.
happening?
Yeah, I can't. I am beyond excited with this year's presentation. It's a fully immersive experience. So from your senses to the visual to everything. It's definitely an edited, I would say, amount. The capacity is a little bit smaller,
right?
Which I'm proud of. Like, you know, like I love big.
A big bash. But
yes, but this one in particular, to be able to execute and deliver what I want, I'm so proud. And it's just the world of AI. There are so many things that I'm still learning about it, and the people that are coming together and the leaders in our community. It's inspiring to learn more about. So for anyone who wants to know, they definitely have to come.
Yes, and follow on your Instagram. Your Instagram is so fun, and you can watch just draping fabric. Like we've barely even spoken about your actual style and what you create, which is this elevated, casual, but incredibly inclusive, and you really are building the fashion of the future. AI aside, I can't even imagine what is in store, and I am on public TV going to request a ticket. I think we already talked about that. I'm shamelessly getting that in there, but I think this episode, what is just surprising to me, and I shouldn't be surprised, is you truly are an example that needs to be out there more for families to see, for youth to see, of what is possible and what is needed when an artist is supported from the beginning of their journey and encouraged to show up with your gifts, with your talents to make change.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm speechless. I'm just so grateful for Joseph Tassoni, award-winning Canadian designer, to join us here at the studio. Check him out on his website, on socials, and learn about more conscious, authentically Canadian fashion. We'll see you next time on Empowered. I'm your host, Jessica Flynn.